Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Anna the Nutritionist, and today I have my screen set up here because I want to talk to you guys about how to actually calculate your calorie deficit. I've received a lot of your questions in my DMs and comments, with a lot of you telling me what your measurements are and asking me if you're eating the right amount of calories, or you are suspecting that it's too low or too high and you want to find out what to do and how to confirm if you're eating at the right amount. So hopefully this video can give you some guidance in terms of finding your calorie deficit and just having more understanding in terms of calorie intake versus calorie expenditure. So right now I'm showing you guys my go-to calculator online. It's called TDEEcalculator.net. It's super intuitive to use. As you can see, there are fields where you are prompted to enter in your details and just hit calculate. So I'm going to use myself as example today, and I'm going to use metric measurements, female, my age is 25, weight 55 kg, and height around 155 cm. Now, in terms of activity, this is where a lot of you guys come in with comments about how much you're exercising nowadays in terms of minutes and the intensity. And this is also where I think a lot of the confusion comes in. So right now, when we're looking at the overall TDEE, what you really want to do is choose an activity level that describes your overall lifestyle. So for me, on average, every week, I work out around 5 times a week. So that would be under moderate exercise 3 to 5 times. And body fat here is optional, as you can see. It is going to influence the result a little bit, because if you are in general a leaner person, then you do burn more calories at rest. I'm gonna leave it blank for now. So I'm gonna hit calculate, and this will be your results page. And even when you're in the results page, you can actually go ahead and make edits to any of those fields that you have just put in to kind of see how the result would change. So if we look at here, it's telling me that my maintenance calories is 1,911 per day. So when we're looking at maintenance calorie, this 1911 represents my TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure per day, if I were to moderately exercise. Now, clearly, when I entered in moderate exercise, it describes me as a person who exercises 3 to 5 days a week. So this number is actually on average what I will burn a day given this lifestyle. It is definitely not saying that it is the exact amount that I will burn, because clearly, if we have common sense, the days that we exercise, we will definitely burn more calories versus the days that we don't exercise. So what is more important here is getting the average number so you have an idea and have a benchmark to work with. So TDEE is actually the number that you want to calculate your deficit based on. Now remember, calorie deficit is your total calorie intake being lower than your total calorie expenditure. So the keyword here is total. So definitely what you want to be referencing is TDEE instead of something like the BMR. The BMR, or Basal Metabolic Rate, is basically the amount of calories that's required to keep you alive without doing anything. So you're not even getting off your bed, you're not even thinking or eating or going to the bathroom. So you're absolutely doing nothing. So that is 1,233 calories for me. Now you'll see that if, let's say, I am toggling the options here and changing myself to an athlete who exercises more than once a day, and I hit recalculate, it will tell me now my maintenance calorie is 2,342, but my BMR here does not change. As long as my age, my gender, my height, and my weight does not change, my BMR will not change. So BMR is regardless of how much exercise you do, etc., etc. It is just giving you a reference of how much energy your body needs to stay alive. Now, I always emphasize in my previous video that when you are in a calorie deficit, you never ever want to eat below your BMR for an extended period of time. 1 or 2 days here and there might be okay, and there's no long-term impact of that. But in the long run, if you're eating below your BMR what's going to happen is your metabolism will slow down. The term that you might have heard is also starvation mode. So what your body is doing is basically saving energy and saving fuel by running more efficiently so that it will not starve itself. Okay, so back to using a moderate exercise as my calculation example. So if I were to want to lose weight right now, the calorie deficit generally suggested for weight loss is around 500 calories per day. So if I look at that and look at my total energy expenditure of 1900, then I will deduct 500 from this number and actually consume at a 1400 calorie per day. So that would be 500 calorie deficit a day, and in a week's time that will be 3,500 calorie deficit, and roughly mathematically that should equal to 1 pound of weight loss in a week. Now, do keep in mind that this is all mathematical equations. So when it comes into real life, nothing could be 100% accurate. So there are a lot of errors involved in estimating that this is my TDEE, in estimating that we're going to be able to accurately eat at 1400 calories. And there are just a lot of things that will also lead to weight fluctuation when you measure your weight. So keeping all of those in mind, you should be looking for a general downtrend in your weight loss instead of an absolute 1 pound lost per week per se. Another question that I get a lot is people tell me that my advice doesn't work because when they deduct 500 calories from their TDEE, it goes below their BMR. So they are not sure what to follow. Do I still eat at that 500 calorie deficit? Do I eat at BMR? What do I need to do? So this case only happens for one type of people, and this group of people are people who are sedentary, or for some maybe also light exercise. So basically you're not exercising enough in your lifestyle, hence your BMR versus your TDEE is only a very small difference. So if you fall in this category, I would have two general recommendations for you. First of all, if you can, to increase your exercise. I don't care what type of exercise you do, but you want to increase that so you can get to maybe 3 days of exercise per week, and that would put you in around a moderate exercise category. So I would strongly recommend that if you can, to actually increase your exercise. There are a lot more other benefits other than burning calories. It can actually work to increase your lean body mass, helping you keep your weight loss progress. It will also help you improve your cardiovascular health and just improve health in general, and also lowers risk for a lot of long-term and chronic illnesses. So I definitely strongly recommend you, if you fall in this category, to actually go ahead and plan in more exercise in your life. Now, some of you might say that that is not possible for you due to different reasons. Maybe you have physical limitations or other limitations that prohibit you from exercising to that extent, and you have no choice but to lead a pretty sedentary lifestyle. Now, if that is the case for you, then I would suggest you to still eat at BMR and do not go below that. In this case, my TDEE is 1479 and my BMR is 1233. I will still eat at around 1200 calories per day, and I will only have around 250 calorie deficit a day. So mathematically, my weight loss progress would be slower and it will take double the time versus if I were to be able to create a 500 calorie deficit. But unfortunately, for those of you who really fall in this category, this is what I would suggest for you in order to minimize the long-term metabolic impact that the diet could have on your body. The other question that I get is, if you have been following this calculation and following this healthy calorie deficit and you are not seeing results, then what should you do? If you haven't seen my videos on reasons why you're not losing weight in a calorie deficit, then you should definitely check that out first. I covered a few key reasons why a lot of people are not losing weight in their calorie deficit. But in this video, I want to focus on whether you got the number calculation correct or not in the first place. So one thing I do want to bring up is that all of these calculators, no matter which one you use, whether it's this TDEE calculator or other calculators, apps, whatnot, they're all calculated based on preset formulas and preset databases where scientific research has gathered these numbers from a huge population and derived these calculations and equations. If you've studied statistics, you will know that any regression based on a population is just as good as an estimate for the average population and does not mean everybody will fit on that line. So there will be people who are bound to be above or below that line where there will be some margin of error. So what that means is for this number that I calculated for myself, it is a good reference point to start. So let's say I would start eating at 1400 calories per day. Let's say I have done that for 3-4 weeks and I have not seen any results at all, and I have eliminated some of the reasons why I'm not losing weight in the calorie deficit that I previously mentioned in my video. Then chances are this 1900 calories a day is probably not the right TDEE for me. In that case, I would try to further lower my calories if there is still room between my intake and my BMR, which in this case, I do have a little bit of leeway. So I would probably experiment by 50 calorie increments. So I would first try out 1350 calories. If it still doesn't work for any reasons, then 1300 calories or 1250 calories. But I would not go below my BMR. And the second thing is to actually evaluate if your exercise level is as accurate as it seems. So for example, moderate exercise 3 to 5 days a week. In those 3 to 5 exercise section, are you really burning calories as much as this calculator might have assumed? So if you are only going for a mild jog versus somebody who also picked moderate exercise but is actually going for a run, this would create a huge difference as well in terms of how much calories you're burning. So other than experimenting with lowering your intake, I would actually also suggest you to try to increase your output. So let's say for my moderate exercise, I'm actually going for a 30-minute jog 5 times a week. But imagine someone exactly like me in terms of measurements who picked also moderate exercise is actually going for a 1-hour run 5 times a week. Then you could imagine a 30-minute jog versus a 1-hour run is a huge difference in terms of calorie burn. It could be a few hundred calories of difference. So in that sense, when we are actually picking the activity level, it is really only as good as an estimation. So there are also room for us to actually burn more calories if we can and increase the chance of being in an actual calorie deficit. So in my example case where I am going for 5 30-minute jog, then I could increase either my intensity or increase my duration of the exercise. So if I can, I would increase my jogging duration to maybe 45 minutes or even an hour if I can. Or I can also be a little more time efficient and increase the intensity. So instead of a jog at, let's say, 6 km per hour pace, I would increase the intensity and go for an actual run at, let's say, 9 km per hour pace. So when the example is kind of jogging and running, it is very clear how you can increase the energy expenditure by increasing intensity or increasing the duration. But for other forms of exercise, you might find it a little bit more tricky because a lot of times the exercise intensity is very subjective. So what I would suggest is actually refer to your fitness trackers if you have one. That way you're able to compare your own workouts to see the true intensity and also have a benchmark to work towards too. So I am by no means endorsing the accuracy of fitness trackers, but what you can do is to actually compare your own numbers versus your own numbers. So what I mean by that is, let's say today I took a spinning class and my tracker told me I burned 250 calories in that 45-minute session. And let's say 1 week later, I go to the same spinning class again and it's also 45 minutes long. But my tracker told me I burned 330 calories in that session. Then clearly now you have a very objective data to support that your second spinning session was more intense than your first session. Versus if you didn't have that number, then you really would just come into that conclusion based on how you feel or how much you've sweated. So what I would suggest is by having these data to try to increase your exercise intensity, so that way you can increase your calorie deficit by, let's say, 50 calories increment until you are starting to see results. So I hope this quick video helps to answer some of your questions regarding calculating your calorie deficit and finding out if you're eating at the right amount of calories. While there is no perfect way to calculate or monitor any of these numbers, all these calculators really act as a good tool and reference for you to gauge if you are starting at the right point. And with that said, I hope everybody can reach their health goals and achieve their goal bodies. And I hope my videos act as inspiration and also information for you to be successful on your journey. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for future videos relating to nutrition and health. Follow me on Instagram for more day-to-day updates, and I'll see you next time. Bye!